Δύο λέρες μόνο με γουάι και απαραίτητη υποσημείωση ότι ακολουθούμε πίσω μόνο τις γυναίκες και τον Ντέμι Νικολαίδη και τον Ντέμι Ρούσο ενδεχομένως και το...
Και όφελος έως 3.500 ευρώ. Η προσφορά ισχύει για
μένα. Συγγνώμη τώρα, η εικόνα.
Δεν τον αδείξει και τη θυσία να πει να φωνάξει.
Μισό λεπτό ρε παιδιά. Τώρα η εικόνα της Καλιθέας που είναι στον ένα πόντο τώρα από το Βόλο. Δεν σε προδιαθέτει ότι θα τον περάσει.
Αυτό σου έλεγα.
Δεν υπάρχει Βόλος στα
τελευταία. Πρώτη αγωνιστική παίζουν, Κώστα.
Ρε παιδιά, συνολικά.
Ναι.
Συνολικά, άμα δεις το πρωτάθλημα, οι ομάδες που βάσει εικόνα συνολικής αξίζουν να πέσουν είναι Λαμία και ο Βόλος.
Συγγνώμη τώρα, να σου πω.
Καλυθέα δεν της αξίζει να πέσει.
Να σου πω κάτι.
Ναι.
Βγήκε το πρόγραμμα το play-out.
Βγήκε, ναι. Πρώτη αγωνιστική Καλυθέα Βόλος.
Ωραία, η Λαμία που παίζει. Πες, να το πούμε.
Η Λαμία παίζει.
Für der Zeit im Gespräch mit Oliver Fritzl. Der Bundesnachrichtendienst hält es also für sehr wahrscheinlich, dass ein Laborunfall im chinesischen Wuhan die Ursache der weltweiten Corona-Pandemie gewesen ist. Aber es...
Mehr drauf.
Nun, die Inflationsrate ist mit diesen 2,8.
Bobek jak i reprezentacyjnych, więc doskonale sobie z tą presją poradzimy i tak jak mówię, trzeba wyjść z chłodną głową, zrobić swoje, a jaki będzie rezultat, to...
ഈ സമ്മറിൽ കൂളായ ഒരു സമ്മാനം നിങ്ങൾക്ക് നൽകാനായി കേരള സംസ്ഥാന ഭാഗ്യക്കുറി.
കേരള സംസ്ഥാന ഭാഗ്യക്കുറി സമ്മബമ്പ ഭാഗ്യക്കുറി 2025. ഒന്നാം സമ്മാനം 10 കോടി രൂപ, രണ്ടാം സമ്മാനം 50.
Einschätzungen von Jan Claudius Hannecker aus der BR-Wissenschaftsredaktion waren das. Und das war unser Thema des Tages. Die Sendung gibt es auch als Podcast in der ARD-Audiothek.
Kunst en cultuur. Zet je geld ook in actie. Kom sparen bij Triodos Bank. Ga naar triodos.nl/geld in actie.
Trouwens, Vitapro heeft een vernieuwde formule.
Zet je
We are a developed nation. We have to take a stand when it comes to morality and justice. Now, all of these people who are calling up and saying that, you know, oh, Russia's going to, if we don't produce more weapons, Russia's going to kill us or bomb us or whatever it is, right? What we need to do is we need to stop using Ukraine as a proxy to serve our interests. If we really want to get to Russia, let's deal with it directly, okay? Well, let's start negotiations. If negotiations fail, I will sign up myself to fight the front lines, okay?
Particularly if America is now pulling away, which it is. So we've got to do this.
I do partly blame the government. Look, at the end of the day, we need these weapons now, and if that is the case, we don't will you have the industrial capacity of the space to produce mass weapons and mass bullets. So we're only going to end up spending money with other companies from different countries like America. It's not going to help our growth or our GDP. It's going to help the GDP of a foreign nation.
British companies involved in doing this, so in that sense, yes, this country could benefit. But there's also your pension fund doesn't really care about geography. It cares about what's going on, where
I'm going to be looking at my pension pot, and I'm going to be looking at where it's being invested. If it is being invested into weapons manufacturers, I will be withdrawing my funds. I don't want my pension to be earning profits from the death of innocent people.
But Imran,
it's not on.
If it can be argued, we are not at war with Russia.
But we are.
Well, we aren't. I mean, we aren't. You aren't. This country has not sent troops to go and fight Russians. So, in that sense, no, we are not. But in the event that we need to be prepared for something like that, we need a stockpile of the ability to defend ourselves. Why would you... I can see that if those bombs start falling, people will start to worry about the ethical side of that investment. But if it's just for capacity, for readiness, why do you mind?
The reason why I mind is because we haven't given peace a chance. We haven't given diplomacy a chance. I mean,
it's happening.
It's not happening. I mean, look.
They're talking now about the
ceasefire. Has Russia agreed to the ceasefire?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, until that's been agreed upon, we have to keep trying with diplomacy.
We don't need to produce more weapons. We've got to be ready for this not working.
But my fear, Tom, is that the more we talk him up, we might end up walking into a situation that we could have avoided.
Yeah, and that would be terrible, which is, the thing that we need to avoid. But in order to be ready for it, I don't know why, they're building capacity. They're building capacity to be ready for whatever might be coming next. Should you profit off that? Should you personally profit from that? I can see what you mean with that, can you? 03456060973 coming up. Medics say we might need a ban on children under 8 drinking the icy slushy drinks after a spate of children ended up in hospital. Bring you the details after this. 4:32 headlines in New York Times.
Canada has announced retaliatory measures worth $20 billion in response to Donald Trump's steel and aluminium tariffs. Sir Keir Starmer says he's focusing on a trade deal with Washington, but all other options are on the table. Both the US and Ukraine says the future of a 30-day ceasefire is in the hands of Russia. Secretary of State Marco Rubio urged Moscow to consider ending all hostilities as the White House seeks a truce. And a 32-year-old man has been found guilty of the murder of an Amazon delivery driver who was killed while trying to stop his van being stolen. Claudio Carol Kanda, who was 42, died after being crushed in Leeds in August last year. LBC weather largely cloudy with showers along the North Sea coasts tonight. Drier in the west, a low of -3 degrees.
LBC this morning on Net for Orient Breakfast. The idea the Sentencing Council had sent out guidelines to judges and to magistrates which could lead to ethnic minority and transgender criminals receiving softer sentences. John's in Bath.
Well, they've got to be seen to be doing the right thing. So if people start saying, more people of colour going to prison, they can say, well, we've done this.
Mike in the Midlands.
So all magistrates go through intensive training on things around prejudice, etc. I'd like to think that my fellow magistrates do not see people in the dock as a colour. They do see people as people.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on your radio and on Global Player LBC.
At Vodafone, get the amazing Google Pixel 9 Pro XL and save a huge £864. Plus, with Gemini, your AI assistant, you can go live, get hands-free help and talk things out. Go online or in-store today. Hurry, enter 18th of March. Vodafone. Save £576 on 5 GB airtime and 36
council tax and a free TV licence for people over 75. Tell them to search for pension credit on gov.uk. Pension credit. Credit where credit's due. Eligibility criteria apply.
Recruiters. Don't miss Recruitment Agency Expo at XL London on the 18th and 19th of March, featuring Deborah Meaden, Tim Campbell, and top recruitment experts and suppliers. Get set to learn, innovate, and outpace your competition. Register free at recruitmentagencyexpo.com.
Right, brace yourself. Co-op members get 2 pizzas and a tub of Ben & Jerry's and a chance to win Co-op Live tickets for a fiver. Yeah, a fiver. It's kind of a big deal, eh?
Ends 25th of March, subject to availability. Eligible tickets to win on Co-op Group members only. See co-op.uk/win tickets.
There are endless stories for you and your little one to tell. You choose what's now in Happy Meal. Some fun, some food, it's all inside this Happy Meal. Plus, get a free mobile Daytona. Until 25th of March at 11 a.m. All stocks last. Terms valid 15th of February to 23rd of March 2025. Terms apply.
Tom Salisbury, call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
4:35, waiting to hear more from the President of the United States about the agreement Ukraine has signed on a potential 30-day ceasefire. Waiting for a discussion with Moscow about whether or not the Russians are going to sign it. It doesn't seem likely at this stage, but the President is due to do a pool spray with the Irish Taoiseach shortly. You'll hear a bit of that, I suspect. I'm going to bring you a Foreign Office statement in a few moments too, in relation to what the Foreign Office say, the British Foreign Office say, is Russian activity and the UK's revocation of accreditation for a Russian diplomat. We'll bring you the details of that in a sec. Here's Tom and Tunbridge Wells first. This is a really interesting one, he says. I've been well against British companies making components which are used in munitions dropped on Gaza, and I'd hate for councils to invest in companies that are making money from that. But, says Tom, I'm also acutely aware of the risks from Russia. I think we should invest in our own defence. So if pension funds can guarantee their investments were with companies that were preparing for our own defence, I don't have a problem. If the investments are in companies who are profiting from components used by foreign militaries, I would not be in favour. Interesting. I tend to agree, and perhaps as Neil is going to say here, yes, on WhatsApp, Tom, I'd be happy for my pension to grow on the back of the defence industry. It's my future. Why would I do myself out of a better income in retirement? I'm a local government pension scheme. If I found out they had not done their best for me, I'd be very angry. It's not for a councillor to decide on my pension's growth, to make them feel better or keep their seat. These companies are supporting our country, our economy and growth. We need to be ready for whatever will come. It's a job at the end of the day. That's very, and one says that's incredibly selfish of you. You are thinking only about your nice, cosy retirement and what nest egg you've managed to build. You're not thinking about the poor people who might have been on the kinetic end of some of the things that your pension fund have benefited from that have built. But we're one cog in a tiny wheel. I mean, not to sound nihilistic about it, but who the hell are you? I mean, you're not going to change the world on your own. Why just worry about what's coming in at the end of the day when you want to retire? 03456060973. So what does he say that you agree with is going on really that we don't understand?
What do I think that's going on really? I think that's Putin and Russia don't represent a realistic threat to Europe. Not at all.
Tell that to the Ukrainians.
The president.
Tell that to the Ukrainians.
I would if Mr. Zelensky was around.
You would tell him that his country being regularly attacked is not actually a threat. What are you talking about, man? They're literally sending drones to hit Ukrainian cities and kill Ukrainian people. What do you mean they're not a threat?
Why? Because this is why you need instruments.
Oh, really? Oh my God. If you don't mind, Graham, I'm all very happy to learn about it, but just don't patronise people when you do it, okay? You absolutely are. Painful. Let's just come on radio to say that Russia is no threat to Ukraine.
I don't think it's that. No, I didn't say that at all. I did not say that at all. I said that Russia is not a threat to Ukraine. And you're talking my words now.
It's definitely a threat to Ukraine, isn't it? Which is why the defence numbers are big. You did say that. You did say that. You said it's not a threat to Ukraine, and you tell Zelensky. You said it. You would tell Zelensky that it's not that Russia isn't a threat to Ukraine. Well, you're wrong. Of course you're wrong.
Well, why is that? Why am I wrong?
What is Ukraine if not in Europe? It is on the continent of Europe. Yes, exactly. Why does a political institution matter? It's on the European continent. Countries have asked to join NATO.
In 2009, the couple was arguing to bring Russia into NATO. Do you think that maybe we talked about things beforehand? Maybe if we'd actually tried online relations.
We had. Russia was in the G8. It was in the G8. It was around the table at the summit of the G8.
Do you remember what the reporting about Ukraine was before 2022?
Yes, I was involved in that.
Yeah.
And 2014, yeah, absolutely.
You remember the right word? Yeah. Although that is supposed to be the democracy. You have to think about that.
Right, thank you very much indeed. Next. Slushy drinks loved by millions of kids should be banned for under 8s on health and safety grounds, researchers have said. Children should completely avoid them because they contain glycerol, which apparently can make them very ill. Researchers studied the cases of 21 2 to 7-year-olds in the UK and Ireland who needed emergency treatment soon after drinking the slushy product. Dr. Dwayne Meller is a children's diabetes dietitian based in Leicester. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme, Doctor. Why are children ending up in hospital having drunk these things?
So the problem is when you get slush, you can't make it like a diet drink and use for every sweet. It's like a Spartan, you need to use glycerol. Glycerol is quickly taken over the top of it. We can't break it down like fats and sugar, so it hangs on our blood. And what that does, it can actually then draw water from our brains into our blood, so it puts pressure on the brains, and that's what makes these children more thin, as the children more low. And that's purely based on the size of the child. So this was originally came up in around 2023, so a few years ago, that the FSA warning that should be put a stated saying that slurpee should not be sold to under 4-year-olds. That was stated, but it's not regularly seen when you buy them in sort of retail.
No.
And they shouldn't be supplied as a refill to under 11s because of the dosing based on the size of the child. And what this report has found is that some 8-year-olds, unsurprisingly, are not that big, and some 4-year-olds are bigger, so that's why they've suggested 8s, because there's now been more cases of these children being linked to their illnesses which are short-term, they recover, but it's very frightening and very serious. Consuming this glycerol, these slushes. And the other problem we don't know is we don't always see if these products are sugar-free, how much glycerol is in them, so it's very hard for a parent or anyone to make a judgment when they see these products sold in sort of it could be a cinema, it could be a soft play, it could be...
Yes, the petrol station. God, every time you go to the petrol station, can I No, you can't. And I'm going to cite your conversation, Dwayne, as a reason why my children cannot have one of these things, because it says if they drink it too quickly, one, you get brain freeze, which I'd love to know what that actually is, and the glycerol intoxication can cause shock, hypoglycemia, and loss of consciousness.
you feel that sort of aching around in your head. That's more of a sensory thing than actually sort of a real risk. You get it from ice cream, you get it from any cold food. It's not a particular thing to massage.
Man, it hurts so much. Dr. Miller, thank you very much for coming on. Dr. Dwayne Miller, children's diabetes dietitian based in Leicester. She got banned for under 8. You're listening to Tom Swarbrick on LBC. Coming up after 5.
Now we have to go to Russia, and hopefully President Putin will agree to that also, and we can get this show on the road, and we want to get that war over with. If we can get Russia to do it, that'll be great.
The US says the ball is in Russia's court after Ukraine said it was ready to accept an immediate 30-day ceasefire, but are the Russians going to play ball? In the next hour, you'll hear from someone who has negotiated with the Russians. 4:46.
LBC travel line Dave Golf on the M25 anti-clockwise. There are severe delays from junction 9 for Leatherhead to junction 6 for Godstone after an accident earlier. All the lanes are open. There were long delays in Edmonton on the North Circular eastbound from the A10 at Cambridge interchange to the Cooks Ferry interchange. That's after there was an accident earlier. In Limehouse, the rockies on the A13 Commercial Road is partly blocked both ways at Caroline Street because of an accident. On the tube, there are severe delays on the Piccadilly line between Cockfosters and Acton Town, and minor delays on the rest of the line. That's after there was a fault on the track. There are minor delays on the Bakerloo line between Queen's Park and Harrow and Wheelstone. That's because of some problems with the signals. And also on the tube, there are minor delays on the entire Jubilee, Northern and Victoria lines.
LBC. Tired of unreliable broadband? Switch to EE today and get our most reliable full fiber ever.
So I can work at home?
While the kids nail dance practice.
And I can help them revise online.
Yes, yes, and yes. We'll even handle the switch for you.
That's epic.
You betcha. All for only $26.99 a month.
$29.99 from 31st of March 2026. 24 months. New customers. 50% UK availability. Terms apply.
Call Tom Swarbrick 0345 6060 973 LBC.
Spring has finally sprung. The flowers are starting to bloom. The sun is almost out. And at Waitrose, our 25% wine offer is back. Get 25% off 6 or more bottles of wine or fizz over £6 at Waitrose. Like an aromatic tiki-rich Sauvignon Blanc, a smooth, full-bodied Terra di Faiano Primitivo, and a crisp Soleo Prosecco. Selected stores online, subject to availability, exclude Scotland box wines, bottles priced £100 and over.
At Wickes, we have kitchens to suit every style and every budget, with prices from under £3,000. Our experienced design consultants will guide you through every step of the process, creating something that's perfect for you. Book your free design appointment so you can feel as
That's what I had a number of meetings with a lot of people over the last couple of months. When we cut, we want to cut, but we want to cut the people that aren't working or not doing a good job. We're keeping the best people, and Linda McMahon is a real professional.
She was a professional wrestler.
Sophisticated businessman.
Secretary of State for Education.
She cut a large number, but she kept the best people. And we'll see how it all works out. But our country was run very badly, whether it was that or contracts that were signed that were so bad, so obviously bad. And I go through them in speeches. I could go through them all day long. I could read for billions and hundreds of billions of dollars. And all of that fat and waste and fraud and abuse is being taken out. But it's incredible what's happened. Now, Department of Education's maybe more so than any other place, has a lot of people that can be cut. They're number one, not showing up to work. Number two, they're not doing a good job. And if you take a look at our education process, and if you look at the charts, because they have numerous charts where they do the top 40,
showing up to work, number 37,
39, 40, and recently they hit during Biden's last few days. They hit last, so they were number 40, and yet we're number one in cost per pupil. So it's pretty bad. But we have a dream, and you know what the dream is? We're going to move the Department of Education. We're going to move education into the states, so that the states, instead of bureaucrats working in Washington, so that the states can run education. And you have Norway, you have Denmark, you have Sweden, you have Finland, you have various countries that do very well. You also have China that does very well in education, which is a pretty big tribute to China, I must say. 1.4 billion, and they're in the top 10, and it's pretty amazing. So we can't blame size anymore. You know, normally you blame size. It's too big. How can you do it? But China does it. So we think when you move it back to Iowa and Indiana and all the states that run so well, there's so many, I could name 30, maybe almost 40.
Possible scenario would have been a full public inquiry.
Good as Denmark, those will be as good as Norway, and they'll be as good as any of these. I believe they'll be as good as any. Now, then you're going to have 10 that won't be so great. You're going to have 5 that will not be good at all, but we'll work with them and we'll get them to be good. But what we want to do is always school choice, but we're going to do school choice, and we're doing it. But we want education to be moved back where the states run education, where the parents of the children will be running education, where governors that are doing a very good job will be running education, not run. I drive through the city and I see like so many buildings, Department of Education, Department of big buildings, and by the way, they're empty. Nobody shows up to work. So I think Linda did a very good job.
So she's the CEO of WWE.
I won't comment on that, but we had a great success yesterday. We have a full ceasefire if it kicks in. We have to see, it's up to Russia now. But we've had a good relationship with both parties, actually. And we'll see. We'll be knowing people are going to Russia right now as we speak. And hopefully we can get a ceasefire from Russia. And if we do, I think that would be 80% of the way to getting this horrible bloodbath finished. It's a bloodbath that's taking place over there. On average, 2,000 to 3,000 young people a week are being killed. And that's stupid war that would have never happened if I were president. So we have people going over there. Mr. VP, do you have anything to say about it? Because you're very much involved. What's your thought?
Well, we've got some conversations that are happening
Vice President Vance's green socks.
The United States has recognised such an important role in the peace process, and yet half the parties from the Northern Ireland government have decided not to come to the symbolic celebrations.
They haven't what?
They haven't come over, they're boycotting the symbolic celebrations.
What are they boycotting?
They are talking about your position on Gaza as well as
No, I haven't heard that. I really haven't heard that.
Can I just say, I took the tribute to the President on the peace, and the Irish Taoiseach, who's also there in Ireland, about the peace process that you've just spoken about. And I recall back in the early 90s, when they first tentative steps to get peace in Ireland, people criticised people like John Hume or people like Alan Reynolds and then Taoiseach. They kept going. And when we got that ceasefire in 1993, it came to a number of years to get the comprehensive peace settlement. And again, the goals more or less largely been solved. The war in Ukraine was a devastating young people. And I think that very simple, straightforward narrative is to be commended. We all have children. We get shocked at the prospect of young people losing their lives in that moment. Be they Ukrainian, be they Russian, anything we can do to stop the violence, I think it's an extremely positive thing. And they were very exhausted. People having qualifications on it, not Bristol. It's our job to try and build it. Maybe some of us have the Irish Taoiseach was in the President Trump in the Ireland office to using the deal that has been agreed by Ukraine on the ceasefire that is now with Russia. So listening to talks from the United States, these are headlines at 5 o'clock.
We are negotiating an economic deal which also might include tariffs.
So Keir Starmer says the UK is keeping options on the table in response to US tariffs on steel and aluminium.
This will raise
Includes things like Russian ships in our port. The captain of a cargo ship which crashed into an oil tank in the North Sea is a Russian national, according to the vessel's owner. The Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says she won't seek re-election next year. President Trump says the ball is in Russia's court after Ukraine said it was ready to accept an immediate 30-day ceasefire after 5 operations.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
BBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is BBC.
From Global's newsroom at 5 o'clock, Donald Trump has promised to respond to retaliatory tariffs introduced by the EU after taxes on steel and aluminium came into force. The president has been speaking at the White House in the past half an hour.
It does create a problem. And as you know, we're doing reciprocal tariffs. So whatever they charge us, we're charging them. Nobody can complain about that. Whatever it is, it doesn't even matter what they charge us. If they charge us 25 or 20% or 10% or 2% or 200%, then that's what we're charging them.
Prime Minister says all options are on the table in response to the measures, but he's focusing on a trade deal with Washington. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey urged Sir Keir Starmer to toughen up. The US is calling for Russia to consider ending all hostilities with Ukraine as it pushes for a ceasefire deal. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been speaking to reporters in Ireland this afternoon.
I think the first step in all this is the acceptance that there is no military solution to this conflict. Neither side can militarily achieve their maximalist gains, their maximalist goals. Neither side can achieve them through the military side. The only way this conflict can end is through negotiation. That's the only way you're going to have peace, is through negotiation. And so we need to start that process.
Yesterday, Kyiv said it would accept a 30-day ceasefire agreement as long as Russia also backs the truce. The US resumed sharing intelligence with and providing military aid to Ukraine following talks in Saudi Arabia. Trump has also recently confirmed in the White House that they have a team heading to Russia now. The Foreign Office says it's expelling a Russian diplomat and their spouse in response to actions taken in Moscow earlier this week. Vladimir Putin expelled a member of the British Embassy on Monday, accusing them of spying. Britain says it will not stand for intimidation. A thief has been found guilty of murdering an Amazon delivery driver who was trying to stop his van from being stolen. Claudio Carol Canda was killed in Leeds in August last year. He was clinging onto the van when 32-year-old stationary car to knock him from the vehicle. And former Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says she feels a sense of relief after announcing her decision to step down from politics. The ex-SNP leader has told her constituents she's not going to stand for re-election to Holyrood. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed up 44 points at 85.40. The pound buys $1.29 and €1.18. LBC weather largely cloudy with showers along the North Sea coast tonight. Drier in the west, a low of -3. Showers continuing in places tomorrow, especially in the north and east. Sunny spells at times with sunshine more widely in the south later. Highs of 9 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Amelia Cox.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Tom Swarbrick.
Very good afternoon to you. 5:05 the time. Tom Swarbrick here on LBC. This hour,
People are going to Russia right now as we speak, and hopefully we can get a ceasefire from Russia. And if we do, I think that would be 80% of the way to getting this horrible bloodbath finished. It's a bloodbath is taking place over there.
the ball is in Russia's court this afternoon. The White House tells the world as Ukraine agrees their part of a 30-day ceasefire plan. Zelensky has said it is now up to the United States to convince Russia to do the same. As you've just heard the president say, his officials are travelling to Moscow to meet with President Putin. What's in the deal? LBC's Washington correspondent Simon Marks is here with the details of what we know so far of that ceasefire agreement. Simon, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Tom. I mean, there is a lot we don't still know about the precise details of this ceasefire proposal because Secretary of State Marco Rubio indicated within the last few hours that a lot of it needs to be kept under wraps. Specifically, whatever has been discussed between the United States and Ukraine about that all-important thorny issue of security guarantees. And we got a bit of a hint from the Secretary of State earlier today that the conversation may well have gone beyond where Donald Trump's position on security guarantees for Ukraine has been, because remember, Donald Trump has indicated that he believes once the minerals deal is signed and American personnel are on the ground, not military personnel, I mean construction figures, geologists, other folks seeking to capitalize on Ukraine's rare earth minerals, they will, in the words of President Trump, provide an automatic security guarantee because the Russians wouldn't dare run the risk of attacking any American citizen. Now, Marco Rubio clearly distanced himself from that argument earlier today, saying that he didn't think that that was sufficient compared to what Ukraine and, of course, our own Prime Minister Keir Starmer is demanding. But Donald Trump making it absolutely clear now that this 30-day cessation of hostilities, both from the air and from the sea, will only kick in if Russia now accepts it. It's up to Russia now. We heard President Trump say there, and he's got this delegation heading to Moscow. Will they meet Vladimir Putin? Yeah. We simply don't know, but certainly talks in the offing.
But we do know that that isn't a sort of Secretary of State or elected official delegation. That's a sort of civil service, if you would, style delegation.
Well,
is that right?
It looks like the delegation is being headed by Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff. He's the man, of course, who went to Moscow and secured the release of an American, Mark Fogel, jailed in Moscow on drugs offences and brought him home. So Mr. Witkoff has currency with the Russian government, but it is certainly interesting that Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who was in that meeting with the Ukrainian delegation in Jeddah, is not himself going to Moscow. It looks like the Russians are going to be talking to a different group of Americans than the Ukrainians were talking to.
Simon, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Simon Marks, LBC's Washington correspondent. So, what is Russia, Putin particularly, like to negotiate with? Rose Gottmuller is former Deputy General of NATO and former US Chief Nuclear Negotiator with Russia for the Obama administration.
The negotiation of the New START Treaty, which I was the U.S. chief negotiator for in 2009-2010, that was at a whole different time in the U.S.-Russian relationship. If you'll remember, Dmitry Medvedev was then the president of Russia, and he had a kind of reform bent. Everybody was embracing him and having a reset with Russia, including Barack Obama, my boss, and the U.S. president. So we were starting those negotiations at a much more positive time in the U.S.-Russian relationship, and the situation we have in the Kremlin nowadays is that the U.S.-Russian relationship has been in the tank for the last 3 years, and even before that time, with Vladimir Putin in the Kremlin and Joe Biden in the White House. Now, obviously, Donald Trump is trying to mend fences, trying to improve the relationship between Russia and the United States. But Trump himself is a pretty tough negotiator, so I don't foresee that this is going to be easygoing with the U.S. a pushover at the negotiating table. The Russians are tough. There's no question about it. They're experienced negotiators. They know the business well, and Putin has an interest in not being seen to cave in too easily to Washington.
Do you think it is, though, the right thing for the United States, for Europe, for Russia, that those fences are mended by President Trump and possibly Putin as well?
It depends on how Trump goes about it, honestly. There's been some concern in the last couple of weeks that essentially Trump and his team are throwing over not only the Ukrainians but also the NATO alliance and turning their back on Europe and essentially saying you're on your own to defend yourselves against an aggressive Russia. Forget about our help. The messages in the last couple of days have been much more subtle than that, and I find it quite interesting. I think it's something well worth watching. That is the fact that now Trump's saying to Putin, hey, if you don't come along on these negotiations, we are going to slam you with more sanctions, and we can cause you a lot more pain. That's been a message coming out of Washington, not only from Trump, but from the Commerce Secretary and others. I don't know really exactly what they are planning in terms of possibly additional sanctions. Gas and oil seems to be a target, but there does seem to be that message now of being tough on Russia as well as on Ukraine.
And Ukraine would say, and they've said before, that diplomacy with Russia doesn't work. They've signed plenty of treaties with Putin before, and he's ignored them in some regards. Do you think Putin is trustworthy?
Well, I don't think you oftentimes in a negotiation can trust your counterpart. What you trust is the process. If the process delivers, if the Russians agree to something and then begin to implement it, if they accept this ceasefire and then actually implement the ceasefire, then we will be able to trust the process. But of course, many counterparts at negotiating tables are not trustworthy. People who do hostage negotiations, when hostages are in the hands of terrorists, they know they can't trust their counterpart, but you trust the process, and if it's producing results, then you can move forward.
You were the former Deputy General of NATO, so let me ask you a bit about the future of that alliance. There have been suggestions, both from ex-NATO officers and from army chiefs in the UK, that maybe the time has come that we must consider conscription in preparation for possible conflagration, further conflagration in Europe. Do you think that's wise? Do you think that's likely?
Well, it's clear to me that the armies in NATO Europe do have a problem. Everyone's got a problem with demography. We don't have the growing populations that we had several decades ago. So it is a problem for the armed forces across Europe. So it's a problem for the United States of America. Nobody's talking about conscription in the U.S., but there has been a problem with recruitment for the U.S. armed forces. So I understand this is a tough issue and a very tough issue politically as well. So I don't envy European leaders who may be considering this step. It was something that
the skills that civilians can do in their daily lives that could be put to use should the very worst happen?
Well, absolutely, and as you can see, information technology is all important to modern military action now, so I think there are many roles that people can play inside the military that are not on the front lines.
Your old boss, President Obama, has talked before about getting countries to increase their defence spending into NATO. Didn't quite do it in the way that President Trump is doing it, but this increase in defence spending is an argument that has been made by American presidents for years and years and years. Why didn't Europe respond?
Actually, it was John F. Kennedy in 1962 who was complaining. Every single president, Republican or Democrat, since that time has been complaining about free riding among the other NATO allies and saying, why don't they spend more on their own defense? Why don't they take more responsibility for their own defense? Well, it's simple. Countries in Europe, the Canadians, they had social welfare programs that they were eager to fund, and for good reason. After World War II, many countries were impoverished. They needed to support their populations. I understand where this divide came from, but presidents have been fed up with it for a long, long time. And Trump, he was the one who basically shocked the Europeans by coming to NATO headquarters for the first time in May of 2017 and saying, pay up. If you don't pay up, the United States will turn its back. It will not fulfill its commitment to defend NATO allies if they are not paying their fair share.
Do you think that's a genuine threat from President Trump, that America could...
I think it's genuine from Donald Trump. He really believes it. Now, I do think it's noteworthy also that people like Pete Hegseth, his speeches in Europe were quite famous during the weekend of the Munich Security Conference, but he also said very firmly and clearly that the United States supports NATO and European security full stop. And I think we do need to remember that. So the Americans are not talking about completely turning their back and walking away, but I think the Europeans have to show a fair effort and a clear effort to be putting their own skin in the game, as we like to say, putting their own resources into the game.
Rose Gottmuller, former Deputy General of NATO and former Chief US Nuclear Negotiator with Russia for the Obama administration. Joe is from Bow. On this idea of conscription, as you heard Rose talking about, Joe says, why do we need conscription with all the technology we have these days? You don't need literal men to fight on the ground anymore. It's 2025. If we do a trade deal with the US, we can get some Tesla bots. Well, you're going to need people to run the tech that does the killing. You're going to need people to be back home that have the skills to be able to do that. So it might be conscription in a slightly different form from what we all know from 1939, 40, 41. But do you think it's coming? Do you think people would sign up to it? Do you think people would do it? Come out of your job where you're doing computer engineering, whatever, and come and help the military in building the bots that go and fight on the battlefields. You're going to do it? Tom Swarbrick on RBC 517 headlines. Amelia Cox.
Donald Trump says it's up to Russia now as the US pushes for a ceasefire deal with Ukraine. The US president has also promised to match retaliatory tariffs from the EU after his measures on aluminium and steel came into force. And a 13-year-old girl has appeared in court charged with murder and arson after a woman in her 40s was killed in Northamptonshire. LBC weather, largely cloudy with showers along the North Sea coast tonight, drier in the west, a low of -3 degrees.
LBC travel line Dave Golf, long delays on the M25 anti-clockwise from junction 8 for Reigate to junction 6 for Boston after an accident in the roadworks earlier. Location the M3 southbound two lanes closed because of an accident within junction 3 for Lightwater and junction 4 for Camberley. In Shinford, there are severe delays on the North Circular. It's park blocked in both directions between the Pride Minute interchange and Waterworks. Police investigation in Limehouse, location the A13 Commercial Road eastbound is partly blocked because of an accident west on Watt Street. On the tube, there are severe delays on the Piccadilly line
change the world. Whatever helping nature looks like for you. From spreading the word to becoming a member or helping wildlife where you live. Find your flock with the RSPB, because together we fly. Act for nature now at rspb.org.uk. The RSPB is a registered charity.
Go home. Day done. Work done. Being crammed onto a packed bus done. Phoning your friend back, the one who likes to talk a lot done. And wearing a bra? Yeah, that's definitely done. Taking your bra off feels great, and so does getting your breast screening sorted. It can detect cancer long before you can even feel it, or more likely, put your mind at rest. So when the NHS invites you, save the date. It could save your life.
Dreaming of a new kitchen? At Wix, we have 70 kitchen styles to choose from, so you can find the perfect one. And with our Spend and Save offer, there's up to 50% off kitchen units. Visit your local Wix showroom to find the style that suits you, so you can feel as proud as a peacock. With Wix, terms and minimum spend apply. Leading Britain's conversation, Tom Swarbrick. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
5:21 is the time. There are countries in Europe that have already started with conscription. There is talk, and as you heard from a former Deputy General of NATO, maybe that is the place that we have to think about going to in this country. Now, I don't think that means signing up to fight. I don't think it's going to be like World War II. But it might mean that the government says, you need to come out of your job, computer analyst, robotics, I don't know, logistics, supply chain. You're going to come out of your job and we're going to pay you to do this to help the war efforts that we are now undertaking in this part of the world or whatever. Do you think we need to do that? It's called civilian contingency, civil contingency. Do you think we need to build that up? 03456060973, and then there is what is going on in Moscow and Jeddah. Trump administration officials in Moscow to talk about the ceasefire deal. We are closer to a ceasefire deal in Ukraine than we have been since the war started. And that is in no small part down to Donald Trump. Now, the manner in which he's gone about doing it, the tactics that are being deployed, and we don't yet know about the outcome. But it is fair to say that we are closer, are we not? Is that not a good thing? Diane's in Stevenage. Diane. praise Donald Trump now, Diane. Yeah. Diane, I don't disagree. I really don't. I think, as I said before when you came on radio, this is the closest we've been to peace in Ukraine, or at least a ceasefire. And there is no doubt that the thing that has changed the game has been the election of President Trump.
My theory, why we are pushing war, we have a lot of old ammunition that we want to get rid of. So we are willing to kill enough people to produce more ammunition. That's my theory. We are not stupid. The public is thinking, and we need to stop this madness. There need to be some adults in the room and stop this warmongering crap, man. It needs to stop.
All right. Diane, appreciate it. There's Diane. Doesn't normally agree with President Trump, doesn't like Trump's methods necessarily, but he's got them closer to getting around the table than happened under President Biden. That's a good thing. No, that is obviously a good thing. 0345 6060973. Is the warmongering coming from places like Britain, with the possibility of a defence force that's arranged in Ukraine to push back any potential Russian threat, with the building of more ammunitions and arms and tanks and guns and bullets in order to defend our continent? Is that where you see the warmongering coming from? Yeah? 0345 6060973. 527 business update here. Chris Justin joins us from 7 Investment Management. We've got to talk the trade war, Chris, that is ramped up almost daily now. All options on the table, says Keir Starmer. To what?
Well, effectively it's gone global. So to date we've only really been talking about China and Mexico and Canada, but now 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium, or aluminum, as you quite rightly pointed out last time if you're American. Imports to the US are now in play, and that is including the UK, hence the response from Keir Starmer. It's worth quantifying this. We export about £350 million worth of steel to the US each year. They use lots of our products in defence and aerospace, and obviously those are booming sectors over there. I should also explain how this actually works, because tariffs are paid by the US companies importing them, not the exporter. This isn't a case of those UK businesses suddenly getting pinged for 25% themselves. What happens is that either the company increases its cost to the consumer, or they negotiate their trade partner down, in this case the UK, or, and this is the plan really with tariffs, they turn inwards and they use American goods which are less expensive. So that means cancelled contracts, and all of which clearly are not good outcomes, particularly if you're one of those UK businesses. But the other consideration is that steel that was bound for the US, let's say from China, who are big exporters, could then be diverted here at a discount. And if you remember, there was talk about whether or not the UK would consider its own tariffs for countries who are looking to flood the UK, perhaps with excess exports. Certainly that's not on the table at the moment either, despite the fact that the government has referenced that everything is up for consideration. But undercutting UK manufacturers and damaging our industry clearly is, again, a terrible outcome, and it needs to be discussed, because this is another negative externality of that wider trade war. But look, Europe has vowed to retaliate immediately with 26 billion euros worth of counter tariffs. Extremely cliched, this. If you look back to what happened in the first term, they targeted US-made bourbon and jeans. I mean, it's like the sort of thing you can imagine you would say to your child. I know, amazing. But bourbon was, well, I mean, depends on how.
Aluminium.
Well, yeah, tomato. But like the jeans and whiskey. I mean, it just feels like almost playground stuff. But it has a big impact, because clearly those are great big sectors over there. But the UK holding onto its cards for now. As you mentioned, all options are on the table, but there'll be a reluctance, I think, generally to pull the trigger, as this wider trade deal is still in play, and the last thing I want to do is poke the bear.
Chris, appreciate it. Chris Justin from 7 Investment Management.
LBC Business Update.
With Who's Off, a low-cost solution for managing staff leave.
Blimey, Ian's having a heck of an afternoon. Tom, please can you tell your last caller, Diane, I want to marry her. A woman who talks sense, says Ian. You're listening to Tom Swarbrick on LBC. Coming up,
we often talk about this grey zone in terms of conflict between essentially East and West, but it includes things like Russian ships in our territorial waters and indeed the territorial waters of other nations.
It's emerged the captain of the container ship that collided into a US military-procured tanker off the coast of Hull is a Russian national. Details in a few moments. 5:30, headlines, Amelia Cox.
Donald Trump has accused the EU of being set up to take advantage of the US. The president says he will respond to its retaliatory measures after he introduced 25% tariffs on imports of steel and aluminium. Meanwhile, President Trump says a US team is on the way to Russia right now to discuss a ceasefire deal. He says the ball is in Moscow's court after Kyiv said it would back a 30-day truce so long as the Kremlin was also behind it. And police Scotland have arrested a 33-year-old man after damage was caused to one of Donald Trump's golf courses. The US president owns Trafford in South Hampshire. LBC weather, largely cloudy with showers along the North Sea coast tonight, drier in the west, a low of -3 degrees.
LBC this morning on Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
The idea the Sentencing Council had sent out guidelines to judges and to magistrates which could lead to ethnic minority and transgender criminals receiving softer sentences. Jonathan Barr.
We seem to be doing the right thing. So if people start saying more people of colour going to prison, they can say, well, we've done this.
Right in the Midlands.
So all magistrates go through intensive training on things around prejudice, etc. I'd like to think that my fellow magistrates do not see people in the dock as a colour or religion. We see people as people.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on your radio and on Global Player. LBC.
One voice can only do so much. But lots of voices can change the world. Whatever helping nature looks like for you, from spreading the word to becoming a member, or helping wildlife where you live. Find your flock with the RSPB, because together we fly. Activate now at rspb.org.